Good morning, Wham! What's up? We're doing chapter 25 today, Silvernails and Big Tub. Okay, so we're going to really study New York, really, but it used to be called New Amsterdam. Did you know that, Connor?
No.
No, cool. Well, now you know. All right, buddy. Let's read chapter 25. Got a big Patriots win, right?
Yes.
Mac Jones. Mac Jones shirt on. Okay. Go Patriots. Chapter 25. Silvernails and Big Tub. Old Silvernails is what they called him, because the stick of wood that stood in place of his right leg was decorated with silver nails. He had lost the leg in a battle in the West Indies. His real name was Peter Stuyvesant, and he was a Dutch governor and a hard, swearing, tough man. Maybe the Dutch thought Silvernails Stuyvesant was the right kind of person to run a colony in America. Maybe they didn't have any other volunteers. When it came to colonial leaders, the Dutch came up with some strange men. They had a great piece of property, but they didn't seem to realize that. They just kind of fooled around on the North American continent. They were more serious in other parts of the globe. Back in 1609, Henry Hudson, an Englishman, sailing for the Netherlands, had gone up the river that is now called the Hudson. Because of that voyage, Holland claimed a large hunk of American land. It was a land wedged between the stern Puritans in the north and the Anglican tobacco planters in the south. The Dutch called it New Netherland. Today we know it as New York and New Jersey. In case you're confused, Holland, the Netherlands, and the land of the Dutch are all the same place. Why don't you find it on a map? And while you're looking, can you find England? Can you see why both nations became sea powers? Now, cross the Atlantic, put a finger on New York Harbor, go up the Hudson River, and look for a passage to China. You'll be stopped by rapids in the river when you get to Albany. That's what happened to Henry Hudson. In 1626, the Dutch West India Company made what may be the most famous real estate deal in history. It bought Manhattan Island, now the center of New York City, and Long Island from the Indians who lived there for some beads and goods said to be worth $24. Since the Indians didn't think people could own land, they may have thought they were outsmarting the white men. By this time, the Dutch had decided that American furs might be almost as good as American gold. So, they set up trading posts. People in Europe were eager to buy American furs. Beaver, bear, fox, and other fur pelts could be made into sumptuous hats, coats, and blankets. The Dutch merchants hoped to get rich in the New World. On Manhattan Island, the people from Holland built a town called New Amsterdam. At one end, they put a wall because they feared wolves and because cities in Europe had walls. Today, that wall is the site of a famous street. Can you guess what it is called, Connor? Famous street where there used to be a wall on it.
Wall Street.
Wall Street is correct. Good job.
Totally didn't guess that.
Outside the walls were farms, which the Dutch called Boweries. Today, a street in New York is called the Bowery. It doesn't look much like a farm now. Because of its great harbor, New Amsterdam was soon a sailor's town, bustling with people who arrived on ships from faraway places. It was said that you could hear 18 different languages being spoken in the city of New Amsterdam. Right away, in 1626, the Dutch brought slaves to New Amsterdam. You could buy a slave for about the same amount it would cost to pay a worker 1 year's salary. So, some people thought it made good sense to own slaves. It was an economic or money decision. One day, a ship sailed into New Amsterdam's harbor with a group of Jews aboard. Peter Stuyvesant didn't want them to land. He was a bigot and didn't believe in religious freedom. Stuyvesant was a member of the Dutch Reformed Church and saw no reason to tolerate others. "Given them liberty," he wrote, them meant the Jews, "we cannot refuse the Lutherans and the Papists, the Catholics." But the Dutch West India Company said the Jews could stay, so there was nothing Stuyvesant could do. Grouchy old Silvernails was in charge of all of New Netherland. He was pretty good at running things, but he would stomp his wooden leg and swear at anyone who would disagree with him. When the Dutchmen who had elected councillors objected to something he said, he called them ignorant subjects. Another time, he said he would ship them back to Holland in pieces if they gave him trouble. But if you're going to run a swearing contest, Stuyvesant might lose. Johann Prince had a mouth that was even more foul. He was the governor of New Sweden on the Delaware Bay, not far from the Netherlands. Prince was a whale of a man. The Indians called him Big Tub, and he may have been the biggest man on the continent. He was 7 feet tall and weighed 400 pounds.
What?
Big Tub was an autocrat, an absolute ruler. He liked to hang people who opposed him. But he did hold his colony together for 10 years, with very little help from the Swedes at home. And he introduced a new style of architecture, the log cabin, that became popular in frontier settlements. Finally, Johann Prince got tired of trying to run things himself and went back to Sweden. The new Swedish governor decided to get tough and capture a Dutch fort. But he didn't realize what old Silvernails was like. Stuyvesant sent 7 ships and wiped out the Swedish colony. Ha ha! That made Stuyvesant popular in New Amsterdam, but not for long. 9 years later, in 1664, the English decided to do to the Dutch what the Dutch had done to the Swedes. Old Silvernails stomped on his wooden leg, but nobody came to his rescue. The British took New Amsterdam without firing a shot. They renamed it New York. All right, and that's when the England takes over New Amsterdam and changes it to New York. All right, have a good night. Say goodnight, Connor. Or just say goodnight.
Say goodnight, Connor.
Oh.